All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Too Many Hobbies podcast. I'm your host, Brian Olathorpe. Today, my buddy Luke Cook that we met on the internet, and then we hung out at Game Fair this year. Luke, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Brian.
So Luke runs Black Dog Marketing, and if you can see on the video, there's probably a reasoning that you named it that.
Yeah, just a few, but this is my boy Jeb here. He's 6, and he's
very photogenic.
Yeah, and so he's my main model, and I use him just about every time I go out. But he's pretty well known. He's actually he's the dog in the Black Cloud ads. A lot of people know him. Like there's a iconic Black Cloud ad that's on end caps and in stores and like in pamphlets for like hunting regulations and stuff, and that's Jeb. So I got pretty lucky that he's easy to work with and loves the camera, and he tolerates all my shenanigans and re-retrieves and the whole 9 yards.
When you told me that he was on the Black Cloud stuff, I was like, of course he is.
Yeah.
So a lot of people that are listening to this won't know who you are. Well, Luke does photo, video in the hunting industry, but I think that it's best that you kind of go through where you started and what is evolved for you as you've been working with all these different companies.
Yeah, so to kind of give you this short version, I started hunting at the age of like 10, 11, going with my dad. And then I was really big into fishing prior to that. And then all of a sudden, when I turned 12 years old, it was like my world changed. And it was like I wanted to do nothing but hunting. And that was like I was just consumed by it. And so by the time I was 14, I started to play around with cameras. And I was like, well, like, why don't I start filming turkey hunts? It's like I can shoot and I can turkey hunt at the same time. And it's like, so I started doing that, and that evolved into self-filming deer hunts. And I would sit in a tree like 30 days a year and really hit that hard. And that's what I loved. And it was really cool because like other people in high school and stuff like really didn't understand, but I was like throwing YouTube deer videos on YouTube, and like I loved it, but like other people couldn't see like why I was so consumed with it.
Got it.
Then eventually I went to school in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, and I started filming duck hunts. I got into duck hunting because I hadn't duck hunted before. So I met a really core group of friends, and we started doing that. And then I started filming for Cabela's Northern Flight. And some things happened at college where I realized I wasn't very good at math. And so like I started to kind of look around, and I was like, what major can I get out of here the quickest with? And it was like, so I'm looking at a communications major, and it was the least amount of credits, and they didn't have Friday class, and they always started like after 9 a.m. And it's like, this is a no-brainer. It's like running around with a camera as it is. And so I had a couple of great internships in college. I interned for Whitetail Properties with Nick Skinner and Jeremy Putnam, and worked down there as they were growing quite a bit. And so really shot educational stuff, shot real estate stuff. It really figured out like what was what. And that was in like 2014 in that time period. And then I came back, did another year at Stevens Point, and filmed for Cabela's Northern Flight, was just a contributor. And so became friends with John Lewis then, who was running Cabela's Northern Flight. And then I applied for an internship, which was, so at the time, Midwest Whitetail held the Cabela's contract for a bunch of different Cabela's web series at the time. And so I applied to Midwest Whitetail, but I didn't want to do anything with the deer because at that point, I kind of was over it. I was kind of over sitting in a tree stand and like listening to people gawk about 140s and 160s and like fight over deer. And it was like, this idea of waterfowl hunting it was more romantic. It was more fun. Like, it was more communal. And so, like, it's like, that's what I want to film. That's what I want to do. So I applied with John to just film the waterfowl stuff, and they accepted me. And so I spent like 6 months following John around. I think we went to like 11 different states and produced like 22 different episodes for Cabela's Northern Flight. And then that was pretty much hook, line, sinker. It's like, yep, this is what I want to do. And so graduated from Stevens Point the next spring, and then I got a job with Hunt Stand, which is now part of, it was Scout Look and is now consumed by Hunt Stand, which, you know, the hunting app, tree stand stuff. And so I got a lot of variety in the videos that I was making between rifle test videos and archery videos and trail cameras, and that was all great. And then I really loved it. And then I wanted to go towards more of the gun side of things. And so I applied for a job at Federal Ammunition and spent 3 great years there. And that was wild, because everything shooting sports I love pulling the trigger and being behind the gun. And like, there's just so much science and ballistics, and it's just, everything's fun in the shooting sports world.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
So, and then eventually I branched out and decided I want to do my own thing and like create my own schedule and just have that freedom. And so that's where I'm at now, where I run Black Dog Marketing, and I work with small to medium-sized businesses and corporations and do brand films, short films. Probably half my business is photography. So specific in-field photography, staged photography, lifestyle, you pretty much name it. So I do a lot of call companies, decoy companies, firearm manufacturers, pretty much across the board.
That's so crazy. I mean, like the progression of going through, like, those are big companies. And like, we were talking about it before, but it's like, a lot of people don't know that, like, you would be behind probably most of the stuff that they've seen.
Yeah, it took a while to get used to, too, because you'd walk into like Shields and they would have like a 15x30 blow up, and it's like, oh, I took that photo, like, had no clue it was here, but it's like, yeah, I recognize it. And so it's, yeah, and like, I'd get like magazine, or not magazines, but flyers from like Midway USA and Bass Pro Shops, and it's like, I'm looking through it and looking at other photos, creative ideas, and seeing what other people are doing, what they like, and it's like skimming over, and it's like, oh, some of my photos.
Yeah, and so like, at a time when you were doing that, like, did you know that those were going to be in there, or you just got like bombarded by it while you were scrolling through?
So like, when I was at Federal, it kind of worked a couple different ways. People would put in a request, and then we would also just have like a general media pool. Yeah. So sometimes other contacts would work with other contacts from retailers, and those two people would meet up. And so I'd have no clue that the media was being used.
Got it. Okay. Yep. So it's, yeah, I mean, it makes sense, I guess. Like, if they've got the extra media to, like, they probably sold it, or like, there's some sort of transaction there. But since you've already like delivered it and you're already being paid for it, they're just like, yeah, there's no reason to even tell them. But it's a good surprise when you start scrolling through.
Yeah. And like, when I was working for Federal as a manufacturer, like, we would supply imagery of our product to make sure that we had a premium image in there, and it, put good light on our product. Because a lot of these retailers, they'll either have old imagery or they won't take imagery themselves. So it's a win-win for everyone if the manufacturer was supplying the images, and everyone was happy that way.
Yeah. So is Federal in Minnesota?
Yeah. So Federal is just on the north side of the Twin Cities in Anoka, and it's been there just over 100 years now.
Really?
So.
Well, that's good to know. I guess I just didn't even realize that it was there. But I guess for anybody, I didn't say it at the beginning, but you're from Minnesota, and so that's why I was curious.
I live in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
But I didn't know if it was like, some of these, like we were talking a little before this started, but like some of these places are like you can work remotely or like you can travel to do whatever it is. So I didn't know I just wasn't sure where Federal actually was.
Yeah, so from where you were at Game Fair, Federal's like 5 miles down the road.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, so it's right off the main highway there.
Okay.
Federal has been there, and they have a huge footprint. They're actually in 2 different counties because the factory is so big, but and sits right on the line. But yeah, the Twin Cities in general is actually a really big hub for outdoor companies in general. There's in Minnesota, it has a strong foothold, like more than what most people would think for outdoor manufacturers.
Okay. I had no idea that either.
Yep. So
that's crazy. So taking a step back, like I was telling you, I used to watch the Cabela's Northern Flight videos religiously. Like those were always just like my favorite series of videos. They're so well done. And it's like when you started telling me that you used to do those, it just blew my mind. And I was like, it's cool to see. I guess there was a lot of that like TV show structure to that without it being a TV show. Like it's not on the Sportsman's channel, it's just a YouTube series. So when you started filming that, was John already making those videos and you came in, or did you help like structure how those videos were actually produced?
Yeah, so John had already been producing those for I think 3 years or so at that point. And really John made that series what it was. John, extremely talented editor, taught me a lot, and I saw some of the garbage that John had to deal with that came through the camera and what he made it into. And like it was also that was a weekly episode.
Yes. Yeah.
And so it's like you start thinking about the time frame that you have to make a weekly episode. It has to be done, comes out like every, Tuesday afternoon, whatever it was. And it's like you're hunting migratory birds, right? And we were located in central Iowa. So, yeah, there are some birds, right? But it's like we really had to scratch out and struggle and find some birds to make some episodes. And we had a few other contributors, but there wasn't a lot, and if somebody didn't have a cold front and didn't have birds, like the whole region probably didn't have birds, right?
Yeah.
And so it was awesome. It was a lot of stress. And at the same time, it was pretty cool to see the whole progression throughout the season.
So are you guys filming every day?
We filmed like 3 to 4 days a week to get an episode.
I can imagine. Yeah.
We always figured like 1 in 3 hunts was going to make the episode.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess my side, my YouTube videos aren't anywhere near that, but like I try and put something out every week, and like the stress of that sometimes is like, it's brutal. Like you said, you're hunting migratory birds. Like you're not going somewhere where it's like, you're not making a reality show where like you can stage everything. Like you are specifically dealing with wildlife, and it never happens the way that you want it to. But when it does, you're like, well, this will be pretty easy to make a show out of.
Yeah. And it's
especially in Iowa, like
right. We were hunting a lot of permission pieces, a lot of public land. And so it wasn't gimmies. It wasn't flooded impoundments, and it wasn't, private leases a lot. And then very few times we actually hunted on like a private lease. Like we hunted in Arkansas. And we hunted in Arkansas in the middle of January, and they hadn't seen a cold front in like 2.5 weeks. And so we're shooting gaddies and mixed match ringers, and not a whole, can't get a snow goose to look at us. And yeah.
So did he have like a specific species that he was always trying to target? Like, you got some places that they're making TV shows. Like when I travel with Sean, we're doing mostly geese. If you're talking about like Dr. Duck, they'll only shoot mallards. Like, was he specific on what he wanted to hunt, or is basically whatever was available?
No, whatever was available. We were equal opportunists when it came to whatever was flying in the decoys. Like if there was mallards coming in, we'd shoot for green for sure. Like, that helps it up so long.
Yeah.
But like, we did go to Arkansas, and we knew we wanted to try to shoot a few specs. That's always fun. And like, we did target darks a lot because there's just geese around Iowa. And so we could usually get on a couple of good goose hunts in a week, and then, we could figure it out from there.
As far as like the gear that you were using, I kind of want to focus on that as we progress of what you kind of started with as to what you're using now. But like, when you were filming those episodes, what was the like main gear that you were using, like camera, audio stuff, that kind of thing?
Yeah. So we were using, our main camera was a Sony Z150, which was new and shiny for its day, because I think we got to shoot 120 frames in slow motion, but it didn't have audio with it. And so you would like bounce back and forth between your record settings, whether you wanted audio or not. So regular 1080 with audio, or like the 1080 with 120 frames with no audio. And we were doing like running shotgun mics and running DSLRs on the side, and like the editing was just a nightmare because you were pulling gunshots, and you were trying to, like, if you had 4 guys that day or 6 guys, you're trying to, like, make it seem real, like how many gunshots you're trying to put in there.
I've had to do that before. Like, I've had times where like, I try not to have like a lot of cursing in my videos just because it does better on YouTube.
For sure.
And I've had times where somebody will be like, a string of curse words, and it's like, I gotta find something else to overlay this, and I'll find even just some ambient noise, or I'll find like a similar string of gunshots from like, and I'll like edit that in there so you can't hear it. And it's like, I mean, I can only imagine that like that'd be like one instance out of like maybe 1 in 3 videos I have to try to like edit out a curse word, like, and even then I'll just like cut out the audio, but like a string of it might happen once a year that I need to do that. But like, if you're having to do that on every episode that you're filming in 120 frames, like, I can't imagine how much of a pain in the ass that is.
I know. And we had one rain out that sticks out in my mind from New York when we hunted upstate New York. We had like 11 guns, and it was in the early season, so you didn't need plugs in. And it was like, you just like thinking about it as like, you just put machine gun fire in there. Like, it just, the bottom just fell out of this flock.
Yeah. And you got to try and put 40 different rounds. Probably without plugs, like 80 rounds going off at once.
Sound engineering, like, is a skill of its own. Like,
oh yeah,
guys that do it extremely well, and like, it's a talent for sure.
For sure. Yeah. Well, if you have to try to do that, I mean, like, think of the stuff that like you would have to send out to like get audio, like sync audio engineering like that. And you'd be like, a few weeks, a month. And
this was before like auto sync too.
Yeah. So like even syncing up cameras was probably an absolute pain.
It was a pain.
Yeah. Because now, like, and people that are listening to this probably don't even know this, but like, you can literally sync by waveform. You can sync by like time code, which is the time like that that's set in the camera. If you couldn't do that at that time, it's like a lot of people don't realize, like, even in like TV shows, the little smack of the
flapper,
yeah, that's what syncs audio. Like, that's how people would line up their audio. And it's like,
how you match multiple cameras.
Exactly. Yeah. And like, you would have to, if you didn't do that in like the field, then you're just sitting there like having to frame by frame watch like where a bird is at a certain point, or gunshots, I guess you could try to do, but that's probably a pain too.
And I guess I should backtrack and say we probably had it, but it was not good. Like, it misinterpret like language and gunshots, and like, you'd be all over the place with your audio tracks, and you're like, this is not right.
Yeah, that's not going to help you in that instance at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm like, if you had to try to do that, like, sound engineering, like, John's trying to do that in probably sometimes 2 days if he has to get an episode out.
Yeah, like 2 full days.
Well, and that's like insane.
And a lot of people don't know too, like like if I shoot something and then I go to edit it, it's much quicker because I know what I'm looking for. It's like, oh yeah, this one clip stuck out in my mind. I want this here. Like there's another clip I know. It's like going to plug that in. It's like if John was in front of the camera and I was behind it, he doesn't know what I pushed record on.
Right. Yeah.
And so he has to go in, organize it, figure out what I shot, and then start mashing it up and like putting full episodes together to make sense, and then have product spotlights in there and to really make it cohesive. Like that's work. Like,
oh yeah. I mean, like that's what I appreciated about those videos is that like the producing of them for a YouTube show, especially, you know, whatever it was 5 years ago or whatever, 6 years ago, it's so much more flooded now on YouTube with people trying to make like, because you can buy a decent camera now and go out and just start filming stuff, and everybody like they'll just sit behind a blind and film rainouts, but like TV quality show or episodes on YouTube that we hadn't seen really before.
And really what made that episode so great, or that series, was like the educational aspect.
Yes.
It was the failures, we're going to try this, it didn't work. And like Cabela's really let us run with that. And they, you know, educational, informative, like, and a story, a journey with it. And so you had all of it. It wasn't just a lot of these. Yeah. A lot of these videos now are just a pile video, right?
Yeah. I mean, like, well, and like with that, it was like there was a story to it. And like there's still, I mean, there are shows now that do it, but you're not just seeing rainouts of birds. Like there is a storyline to it. There is a progression of the trip, the hunt, everything. Like he did a really good job of talking when he needed to talk to make it all flow very well.
Mm-hmm. And so, it takes a really strong talent to organize that in their mind, how they're going to say that in front of the camera and to move that story along. Yep.
Well, because he was so comfortable in front of the camera too. He still is. I mean, when you watch the Just Hunt Club, but like he was so comfortable in front of it. You're like, well, who? Like when I first started watching, I'm like, who is this guy? Like what TV show did he come from? That it's like he was never like overly like staged. Like it was never like a script. Like he would start talking, it was all very authentic, and it like made those so much easier to watch because it's not like there's nothing like cringy about it. Like it was just like dude's out there hunting. Apparently he's got a fantastic video guy behind the camera, and then, you know, just pumping out awesome episodes on YouTube. It's just like, it was like, I missed that. There's so many times where like I'll be scrolling through something and those will pop up. I will watch them again. Like I really liked that series of shows.
And John really was a product of Midwest Whitetail, because when he was, I think, 19 years old or so, he interned for Midwest Whitetail too, and then became a full-time employee after that. And before, I don't think John had touched a video camera before that.
Really? Okay.
And so, and you look at Midwest Whitetail, and what it used to be, like it was a powerhouse for creating videographers. Like you would, like Lake Pickle came out of Midwest Whitetail, Pat McSherry, 𝐥𝐤𝐤𝐞, of course, Warb, you know, was there through most of it. You know, there's just a ton of guys that came out of Midwest Whitetail that are thriving throughout the outdoor industry, and really strong shooters, editors, and now moving on to different marketing positions.
Which is crazy. But I mean, you get into like the background of like a lot of people don't even know who they are. And it's like, those are probably people that you've seen so much of their work and have no idea.
Right. And everyone has their own style, and like,
yes,
when you spend time looking at it, it's like you start to pick that up and see.
Oh yeah. Same thing with photos. Like anymore, I can scroll through like Instagram or Facebook, and as soon as I see a photo, I don't even have to look at whose name it is. I'm just like, that's so and so, and then I'm like, oh, yep, it actually is. It's pretty cool. I was talking when I was talking to, I don't know if you know Matt Hicks from Last Flight Calls, but so he does a lot of photo stuff. He's like 2 hours south of me. And
Yeah.
he does a lot of stuff with like Apex and just shoots a lot of really, really good photos. And we were both like going through we both entered that Delta waterfowl like photo thing, their little contest.
Yeah. Yep.
And he's like, because it doesn't say who it is, but like he was scrolling through. He's like, oh, I saw that you entered in there. I'm like, I saw yours too. Because we knew each other's style. Like it's different, but like that's kind of what makes everything so cool. Like if you to stand out as a photographer or a videographer in this industry or in anything really in general, you have to have a style that's different than everybody else's that stands out. And so it's cool to be able to like see that and like pick that apart as you're watching people's stuff and be like, I know who that is because I know that's how they shoot.
And a lot of people stress about it. Specifically like new people, they're like, oh, I need a style. And it's like, just shoot and figure it out.
Right.
Like your style, you'll figure out what you like and don't like in your style. And then you'll look back at your Instagram timeline one day and you'll be like, that's my style.
Right. Yeah. Like you go on there and you're like, okay, well, I guess I figured it out. Like I've always just edited stuff the way that I like it. So it's like everybody's brain, everything tickles people's brains differently. So it's like, if you just stick to what you like, as opposed to like seeing somebody else's photo and then being like, oh, I really need to make it look like that. And it's like, no, just stick to your, I mean, like if you don't really care about like sticking out or I guess, or like making a your own style, then do whatever you want. But like I feel like you just kind of fall into it. Like you don't try to make you like stress about your own style. You just like come like as you're editing stuff, it starts to kind of, the way that you edit is the way that you like that. Like you said, that just becomes your style.
Within reason, I think.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, you don't want to blow the saturation up to 100 and then be like, that's my style. It's really great. It's awesome.
As soon as you start dabbling in the abstract art space, I'm like, and like I've shot a lot of natural light and, doing a lot of commercial work and like large format prints. Like I always shoot for skin tones. Like,
right.
If you look like you have a sunburn, or like if you start getting a lot picking and pulling at background colors too much, and it's like, I always shoot for authenticity, and that's just my style. But like, there's guys out there slapping LUTs on it and stuff, and it's like, you like Apex, has a specific brand style guide in their colors, but it's consistent and it's awesome. Like it's not over the top. Right. There's other out there, and it's like not so much. Maybe it's just me, but it's like I would never do that.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I guess I've always fallen into like the like true to color, which is kind of essentially what we're talking about. Like not trying to make it over the top, abstract, whatever. I've always tried to stay like true to color, but there's always like I'll see stuff that it's like, man, that would have been such a good photo if you would just like lined up the skin tones, like you said, or like not blown out like saturation or something. Like I think it, like, yeah, within reason, coming up with a style and like, I think that as you progress and you become like essentially a professional and your work is being used commercially, that's where like you establish yourself, and then like your style becomes your style because it's established and it's good, not that like you just did something off the wall to make it different, but it's actually just bad. Like your style is good.
And brands that like your style will be more attracted to you.
Absolutely.
There's enough brands and work out there where if somebody doesn't like your style, well, they're just going to pick a different creative, and that's not wrong.
Exactly.
You didn't do anything wrong, but it's just like people like different stuff, right?
It tickles their brain different. Yeah. That's it. Like, and like I hire people to do work for me, and it's based off of like what I think they do that's similar to me. Like there's a lot of work out there that I'm like, oh yeah, this is really good. it just doesn't fit it doesn't fit my style. And I try to keep that brand or on brand. So I'm not going to like, oh yeah, you do all this crazy, whatever. It looks good. It's not what I'm going to hire somebody to do for me. Right. Same concept. Yeah.
And the more and more, I've been in the outdoor industry pretty much full time for 10 years now. It's like, I don't want to say it's like high school, but it is very much like who you like doing business with.
Of course, yeah.
People have to like you. I mean, if I go on a photo shoot and I'm a stick in the mud and I'm just straight laced and don't drink a beer at the end of the night and like nobody wants to talk to you, it's like, who wants to spend their days doing that? So creating those relationships, having a good time, but also being able to deliver on the media, like that's what people want.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, they want to have a good time and they want to get the job done effectively.
Well, and like the outdoor industry, as opposed to like other commercial industries, that anything is so small. Like, I mean, you're talking about like, what is it? 0.5% of the population even buys a hunting license, and then like how whatever percentage of that is waterfowl hunters. Like deer hunting is way bigger. But I mean, like if you even talk about fishing, like that is astronomically bigger. That industry is way bigger than waterfowl. I'm sure that there's crossover between the two, but it's like you're talking about a very small industry. Like at this point, like you probably know more people in it than I do, but like at this, like I've gotten to the point where I'm just like, how did I even cross paths with this person? Like it just is so, it's gotten so small. It's crazy.
Well, and the fun part about it is too, like people in the outdoor industry, like they're there because they like to be in the outdoor industry. And then like, people on average change job every like 3 to 5 years.
Right.
They job hop to a different job in the outdoor industry.
Right. Yeah.
And so like you may have worked with them at a different company and then you get a phone call down the road 5 years later and they want to bring you in for a different work to shoot for a different brand. And it's fun because, you're like old friends.
Exactly.
Or you're going to work with them. Like it's so, going to trade shows and going to other events and, going on hunts where you hunted with somebody 3-5 years ago. It's just fun.
Right. Yeah. No, and like, yeah, it's the other side of it too is like, you can't really work in the waterfowl industry without being a waterfowl hunter. So like you find these people that are super passionate waterfowl hunters, and then you put them behind a camera and it's like, they get just as like for me, and I'm sure the same way with you, like I get just as much enjoyment as like shooting something awesome behind a camera than I do with a gun. Like I really don't care either way.
Like it's fun to geek out about it.
Oh yeah. And which we could do for the next 5 hours. I'm sure. Yeah, like you can really geek out about it hard.
Yeah.
People don't understand it. Like I'll take
the smallest of details too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like water droplets coming off of a bird.
Yeah.
That's sick. Like
that's what I was thinking about. Yeah.
There's a bird. There's this picture behind me that's like one of the first like really nice photos that I took when I bought I bought a 500 mil or it was a 150 to 500. It was my first long lens. And that was the first picture that I got out of it that I was like, that is sick. And it's a mallard flying with its wings cupped down. So you can just see the speculum all the way up. Yep. And there's water droplets just coming off. And it's like, I had so many people like texting me. They're just like, I want to get that printed. Like I sold a lot of those prints. And it was like, just because of the water droplets, they thought the water droplets was sick.
Like it's a feeling, like it's a memory for a lot of people. And like, if you're not a duck hunter, it doesn't have the same context to it.
Right. It doesn't matter. Like if you saw somebody, like if you filmed raining out 10 geese and you got it all slow-mo 120 and you're like, oh, this is sick. And you go and show that to like your aunt, she's going to be like, nice job, Luke. It doesn't get it. It's not the same feeling.
Yep.
Yeah. But it's cool. Like I've also found that like between people in the hunting industry, especially that do photo and video, like you and me could sit here and talk about this all night. And like, I don't consider you competition in anything that I'm doing. Like you and me get along well. I get along well with other people that do the exact same thing. And it's like more than anything else, we would be there to help each other as opposed to be like cutthroat about it.
Yeah. And if like, and this has happened, like, okay, like you work with this certain brand, like, okay, I'm going to steer clear of that because I know that's Brian's friend, that's Brian's connection. It's like,
right.
And like, I just have too much respect for other people.
Right.
Like, not too much respect, but like enough respect for other people that like, I'm not trying to take food off their table either.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, like but there also has just become so much work because of social media that it's like, you really can't get too much content. So people like you and me could show up at the same place, be shooting the exact same thing. They're paying both of us to do the same thing. And it's like, just because there's that much work.
Yeah. And then like the amount of editing, like you both know, you could spend days and days shooting content and weeks editing.
Months. Yeah. It's just like, yeah, that's the thing too, is it's like, yeah, like, and I think that, I feel like that, I don't know if you feel the same way, but like, I think that turns a lot of people off to like really getting into the weeds of photo and video.
Oh, for sure. And photo's almost more, I think so many more people gravitate towards photo because it's more bite size, it's more manageable, and you can see the return on investment. Hey, I snapped this photo, edited this photo, I can post it to Instagram. Boom, boom. You can wipe your hands of it and be done. And like you have a finished product, where video, it's so much more work.
Well, and there's so many different ways that you could deliver that video.
Yeah.
You can cut it up in different ways. You can slow it down. You can color grade it. You can make it a reel. You can make it, you can do 9:16 or 16:9. Like, it's like, there's so many different ways that you can present that video. And that's, if you do it 5 different ways, that's 5 times more editing.
Yep.
Yeah. It's just, there's too much. We could go down this rabbit hole all night. Yep. So I want to get into the work that you did with Final Approach coming up to the Jack Miner Museum and Earth Sanctuary and doing all of that. How was that presented to you? Was that just a client that reached out to you, or did something stem from that?
Yeah, so that was a one-off project. So I'm friends with Adam DeMarchi, who lives in the Twin Cities here, and he's the main shooter for Final Approach and does all their episodes. And I had been on a couple hunts with Adam before, and I had met, I actually hunted with Mario twice before with Final Approach. And so I was kind of familiar with the brand, and they were looking for a shooter to fill in for Adam because Adam had a different project. And so I got the phone call, and it was like, absolutely, I want to go to Jack Miner. Like, and like, Jack Miner is in this interesting spot where like very serious waterfowlers know about Jack Miner, but a vast majority of waterfowlers don't. And so
they just know the band.
And so it was really cool to go to the facility where, Jack's house was and where he did all his banding, and they started a lot of research and how that's evolved. And it was amazing that I got to tell that story. And so we shot there, I think it was 4 days. So 2 hunt days and then 2 days kind of around the sanctuary. And there's so much to see there. It's incredible. They have educational offerings for like school groups. They have the museum tour. They have the banding. They had a whole auditorium kind of set up for doing presentations and stuff. They have the original Jack Miner pond, and so it's almost overwhelming with how much history and knowledge is there.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's like, so for anybody that doesn't know, the Jack Miner Museum is it's directly north of me across Lake Erie. So we see, I mean, like, I haven't been there, but I know quite a bit about it just from people that I know that go there, have done work for it or whatever. But like, they still do everything there the same way that Jack did it. Like, they still use his original catch net. They still do like the Bible verses on the the bands and all of that stuff. But they don't realize how much extra stuff there is. Like the educational piece of it, crazy. He used to do like what, a couple hundred seminars a year, and it's like,
yeah, hundreds of speaking events.
There's not that many days in a year, so he would do like multiple speaking events in a day, and like that's all he used to do is just travel the country and try to like educate people about waterfowl migratory birds.
Right. And I don't like a lot of people, like I had no idea the magnitude of the impact that he had. Like he was friends with like Henry Ford and Ty Cobb. He had articles published in the New York Times, and like just like for somebody that was living in the early 1900s, he had just such long reach and magnitude.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like, I think in the Henry Ford Museum in Detroit, there is a section of the museum that has duck hunting stuff in it because of Jack Miner.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's pretty cool. Yeah. So what was your favorite part about being there and filming it?
That's tough.
It can be a couple too. I mean,
I'm thinking about it, and it's like the whole experience was surreal. It's like you show up and it's like there's banded Jack Miner birds like hanging in the pond, and like you go into his house and like everything. It's set up for the museum now, but like they kept it as original as they possibly could. And it's like for a person that loves ducks and geese, it's like the nerdiest, best place you could ever go. It's just like everything is like you could like just walking around, like everything's cool. Like all the paintings, like all the artwork, like the newspaper articles, the historical elements, like it's just all of it was cool. We had the really unique experience too. We ended up hunting with some locals in that area, and we did shoot a couple of Jack Miner bands. And like we weren't right next to the sanctuary either. And it's like some people might think it's like, oh, we were on the field on the outside, and that was not
across the road.
And so it was really cool that we had the opportunity. We shot into a flock, and the flock was mostly banded. And so, like, you can see that on the Final Approach episode. And it's like, I'll probably never see another Jack Miner shot, but
and definitely not in that like scenario. Like you're up there filming the Jack Miner sanctuary for a video, and then the next video that comes out is you guys shooting Jack Miner bands. It's just like, it's so cool. No, but
the storyline, it worked great.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm getting at. Is like the storyline played out so perfectly that it's like you couldn't have planned it better.
Right.
And if anybody hasn't seen those, go to the Final Approach YouTube page and you'll be able to see it's just the two videos, right? They didn't do it, or did they do a third video on the hunt?
So Final Approach, I think, put out a 2-part video.
Yes. Okay, that's what I thought.
That was edited by Adam, and then I had the short film that Weatherby put out, and that's on.
That's right. Yeah, So the Weatherby film is on their Facebook or their YouTube channel.
Yep, and it's called Banded Together.
Yes, and then the 2-part is on Final Approach. Yeah, you're right.
Yep.
I watched them all, but I couldn't remember. I watched almost freaking YouTube. It's crazy, but no, that the short film turned out so good. I just watching it and like getting your side of it, because I think I texted you as soon as I watched it. I was just like, dude, this is insane. So we already talked about your setup that I guess would have been kind of at the start of your career, or like your filming career for filming hunts. What do you use now to film something like that?
So I run, depending on what the scope of the work is, what I'm doing. A lot of times I'll have a FX3, and that'll be dedicated for video. That'll have a shotgun mic, and then depending on what I'm doing, was really going to dictate what lens I have on there. And then for photo, I mainly run a Sony A7 R5, and that almost always has a 35 to 150 Tamron on it. And just because in the field I can't be changing back and forth, and I don't want dust on my sensor, and it's like that range, I feel very comfortable even getting wide stuff at 35, pushing into 150. It's a 2.0 lens. Like, you can do so much with that lens. And it's not an extremely expensive lens. And if it gets dropped in the marsh, so be it. If it ran its life, it ran its life.
You could probably buy at least 2 of those lenses with what a G Master lens would cost.
Yeah. It's been paid for. So
yeah, it's gotten its use for sure.
Yep.
So then when you're filming, so that FX3, is that what you're using in the field?
Yeah, almost all video comes from the FX3.
Okay. So does that have any stabilization in it, like in-body stabilization?
So that does not. And so, Yep.
But it's all, I mean, it's autofocus and everything. I haven't run the FX3, so
I think it has a slightly older Sony autofocus in it.
Got it. Okay.
It's a powerhouse. And then it's a dual native ISO, so 800 and 12,800. And so, like, I have some glass that's not so fast. It's like an F4, but like that's not a problem because you can run it at 12,800.
Right. Yeah.
So, and you still be good to go. And so, like, filming deer hunts or filming first light for waterfowl, you know, trying to film turkeys on the roost, anything like that, like, it kicks butt. Like, it's awesome.
Yeah. I have all the Nikon mirrorless, and like the newest one that I have, the ZX or the Z6 III, I can be filming a wedding at like 10,000, 12,800, and like it's all super usable footage. It's insane what you can do with these mirrorless cameras anymore.
Right. And it's come so far in the last 7 years, 10 years. Like,
oh my gosh. It's just insane. Like, and they're compared to like probably that Sony Z150 that you use, like much more compact.
Oh yeah. But like sometimes I miss it, to be honest, because the Z150, like that Sony camcorder, that size, we've gotten smaller and smaller with cameras, and they've just gotten harder to hold on to. And then all of a sudden, like, you start putting a top handle on it, and then you put an XLR on it, and then you put a V-mount battery on it, and then you're starting to build this out. And it's
right
like,
back to it, yeah.
You're right back to the same size and not in an ergonomic form factor. And so
no. Yeah, it's all box. Like, yeah, you've got little things off. It's not as easy to hold as like putting your hand right next to it.
You got cords and cables coming everywhere. And
Yeah.
Well, I wish I had an eyepiece, and it's like, well, I might as well go back to a camcorder now.
It's funny, like it's kind of like the progression of or I guess the revolution of waterfowl gear. It's like Silos will be in 5 years later, they're out, then they're back. It's like video, we're trying to make it smaller, it's just coming right back around, and we're gonna end up shooting with the same size camcorder. I mean, like, look at the Red cameras, they're so freaking big, and it's like,
I absolutely too. Like, why would you? And I was just talking to my buddy Josh Preisner about this. It's like, why would you? Okay, you start with a cube, right? And you start building it out. It doesn't have a monitor. It doesn't have autofocus, like,
right.
And so you start, you have to pull autofocus motor, and you have to build it out. You have exposed fans, and it's like, if you're not doing high-end commercial work, it's like, forget it. Like, it's
not practical to use something like that in the field.
Not for outdoor videography. It's really not. It's like,
no.
It's not built for this. And you, especially like a rainy day duck hunt, like,
that thing's toast.
Yeah, it's really expensive, and it's toast. Guess what? Like, would it suck if I fried a FX3 or a Sony A7 R5? Yeah. But like, they're also mostly weather sealed.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like 5,000, not 20, 30.
Right. Yeah, well, and then you got to buy like the batteries only last like not that long. They've got the SSD instead of a card. Like, you got all this stuff that just starts to add up, and it's like, it's completely it's out of the realm of possibility for us to, like, if you went in like like a really dry field and you were filming a goose hunt and it's windy, you're going to suck so much dust in there. And like you were saying, these cameras are like mostly water resistant, but they're weather sealed. So if you get dust, as long as you don't take the lens off, you're not going to get dust in there. Like, you're fine.
Like, I've had some cameras pretty darn wet laying in layout boats with Mark from Layout Addictions, and like, we're out there in 4 to 6 foot rollers and you catch one that comes over the front. It's like, ooh, that's not so great, but like, they do pretty well.
Yeah. Well, it's a perfect segue because I was just about to get into that, because that's where I first ran into your work, was when you were like, when Mark was posting stuff and tagging you in it. And I was like, man, this is insane. And then I was like, that's when I added you. I think we've been talking since then, but like, when you were doing stuff for the layout, like for layout hunting, how much more difficult was that than what you're used to doing, like stuff with John?
And so, funny segue, like, I actually met Mark because we needed an episode of Cabela's Northern Flight. And so, roundabout fashion, so I went to college in the same town where Mark lives and has his business, which is Stevens Point. You know, that's where he has Layout Addictions and Great Lake duck boats. And so that's where he's based out of. And so I had a mutual friend with Mark, Andy Coleman, and he invited me to go on a layout hunt when we were shooting 𝐥𝐤𝐬 on Lake Michigan there on the Wisconsin side. And it's like, yeah, this would be a great episode. Let's do it. So went up there, and I think I sat in that layout boat like 6 or 8 hours straight, basically. And we had like 4 to 6 foot rollers. And I figured out, and it took me a while, but I think it took me 3 trips to figure out that I get seasick and need to take Dramamine. Before, I just like, I just had a bad sandwich from Quick Trip, whatever. Like it was to the point where I was puking stomach bile, like on Mark's layout boat. Like I didn't have anything left in my stomach, but like I'd puke and then I'd come back up filming, and like you're just in a layout boat, right? Like you're just doing that sit up all day long, and then you're holding the video camera off your right side, and it's like between that and puking, like it was a challenge. Like, it's like Mark never thought I was going to come back. It's like, no way this is coming back. And he looked at the episode and it's like, oh, that was pretty good for what we had to deal with. Like,
it could have been way worse.
Yeah. So
so it's funny you say that. I do get seasick. I live 2 miles from Lake Erie and I get seasick. I don't like, if it's 3 foot rollers, I won't go like perch fishing, walleye fishing. I'll only bass fish. But if it's cold out, I can handle it 10 times better. So like, we were in Massachusetts doing a layout hunt with Randy Drago from Codfather Guide Service. He did there was a Drake episode with Pit Boss, and he had Pit Boss had him take him out, and they did some layout hunting, and so we ended up going with him. And we were in the Boston Harbor, and we were in 10-foot swells. And this boat, is just going 10 foot up, 10 foot down, 10 foot up, 10 foot down. It took me 4 hours, and then I just finally lost it. But, like, if it was fishing, I'd have been done 20 minutes. I've been throwing up. So same thing. I got to take Dramamine as well. So you're not alone.
I tried all the tricks, too. I tried the C-bands. I tried the Coors Light trick. And then it was like, oh, I'll just take Dramamine. Like, I don't get that sticky from it. It's like perfect. Nothing. Yeah.
That's crazy. So then did you end up coming back and like doing stuff specifically for him after that?
Yeah. So me and Mark just hit it off, and like, it was like, I have enough ambition to go once a year with him, like for 2 days. And then that's my fix for layout hunting, just because like the seasickness, it's like, oh, okay. I don't get to take the dog. Like,
right.
I get seasick. It's like, that's good.
Yeah.
But But yeah, so me and Mark make that annual trip.
That's
and
awesome.
we just have so much fun. Like, we had our buddy Chad up one year, and like, when you put me and Mark in a boat together, it just seems like things go wrong, and I can't explain it. Like, the one year we were going out, it's like kind of icy, kind of slippery. We pull out of Mark's cabin and we start driving towards the lake, and we're going like 55 miles an hour, and stop and get our quick trip and on our way. And we're just bouncing down the highway with Mark's like 26-foot or 28-foot boat at the time. And we're going 55 miles an hour. And all of a sudden, we just feel this boom hit us in the back. And it's like, that's not good. And like, we got serious whiplash. The trailer axle's locked up. So we were going down the highway, and a drunk driver had fell asleep on the gas pedal behind us. And so they must have been going 90, 100. We don't know how long, but it ended up pile driving their like little Toyota Corolla or whatever it was into the right bunk of Mark's trailer. And Mark's boats are so tough. Like, it didn't even leave a scratch on his boat. Like, it like destroyed this car. And so Mark gets out, understandably is pretty heated, and like, our buddy Chad got whiplashed, and his head got slapped down, and it's messed up his back, and so ended up calling the cops. And like, the guy that hit the right bunk, like, his car was like basically like gone, and not a scratch on him. Was drunk, and like, he woke up and like, he didn't know what was going on, and it was bad. I thought I was going to watch Mark murder somebody that day.
Well, I mean, that's a very like understandable reaction.
Right. And it's like, you start talking about the aftermath of it. Like, you just don't get a new, like, there's not a new trailer manufacturer just down the road. Like,
right. Yeah.
For Mark's boats, like, they're big enough. Like, he's very specific about what trailer he has and put on it. So yeah, just, we always kind of look at each other and like expect the worst when we hunt together, just because it seems like something always goes awry.
Well, if I come up this year with you, it better not be that way.
Yeah. Have your lucky 4-leaf clover. Make sure your shoes are tied. Wear your life vest. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. All the things. Yeah. You'll see me out. We pull up with like the 2 of those inflatable one, just in case. The one that's gonna go off, so I'm gonna have to have a second one. That's crazy. No, I remember seeing a lot of your work when Mark would post it, and I was like, man, this is really good stuff. And so it's cool that's kind of how, because I met Mark years ago here in at Point Malay. We have a festival up here, and I was getting into layout, or I was in layout hunting. Like, I'd been doing it for a couple of years, and I was trying to get, like, I had all my own stuff at the time, and I was just talking to him. And so kind of same thing. We hit it off. We were talking for a while and ended up, like, we talked, I think last year was the only time that I haven't really talked to him, but like during the season, he'll be like, how the birds looking over there? And we kind of bounce back and forth talking. Yeah. And it's like, it's cool to have that kind of camaraderie, especially with layout hunting. Not a lot of people do it anymore, especially on the Great Lakes. So it's like, it's really cool to experience that stuff, but it's like 10 times harder to get any usable footage, especially like in your scenario where you're trying to film a show. And like with me with a GoPro or like the DJI on my head, like, it makes it very easy. But like trying to be, I'm assuming you were like staggered behind in a boat filming them in the boat in front of you.
Yeah, that the first couple of years, how we did it is we run a lead single man, and then we drop back 10, 15 yards within another single man. And it's like, you spend that much time in a layout alone, it starts to get a little lonely. You're out there bobbing in the water, like not talking to anyone. And it's like,
right. Yeah. Well, that's why we like I just refurbed a 2-man, because it's like we would put two 1-mans next to each other, it takes away from like the overall hunting experience, especially if you like we really haven't done it a whole lot in the last few years because we would rather shore hunt with dogs. Like you were saying, you don't get to take the dog when you're in the layout. So it's like we've kind of used it more or less as like either we're going to switch it up or like the birds aren't working the way that we want them to from shore. And it's like we really don't want to keep getting skunks. So it's like drag a layout, bow it out, actually shoot some birds. But it's like some of them, Mark's boats are pretty comfortable, but like the other boats that we've used, it's like they're so uncomfortable that there's no way I could sit more than like an hour, let alone 6, especially filming.
Yeah.
No way.
I mean, Mark's 2-man ghost layout, like that thing's incredible. Like me and Mark will gun next to each other in it, and I think Mark's like 6'3", 6'4". So, you know, he's a pretty big guy, and it's like we have plenty of room to sit up and miss our birds. And
it happens. The best of them. Yeah.
It's fun shooting. It's sporting. That's what we'll call it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm like, I mean, divers are so damn fast, then they come in so low, and it's like, it's such a different experience layout hunting than anything else. Like, I'm glad that you were able to get footage so that people can see what it's really like. It's cool.
Yeah. And like at that time when we filmed for Cabela's, like there was like 0 old squaw footage out there. Like none on mainstream YouTube that we could find. And so it was cool that, you know, to show people old squaw on Lake Michigan and in the upper Midwest there.
Yeah, it's super cool. Like now, well, and they're so freaking fast that's probably it's hard to get them on film.
Yeah.
Hard to track.
They're barking and yeah,
that's cool. Yeah. So what's coming up next for you?
The next trip that I have coming up will be going to Illinois, and that'll be with Love the Grind TV. And so I'll go film. So Trey Wayne's, he was a cornerback for the Minnesota Vikings, and he's part of that Homegrown Outfitters TV show. And so I'll go down to Illinois and film him. And so there's that. And then I'm looking forward to like a couple weeks around home to really hunt the dog hard.
Oh yeah.
You like have been going a lot of places this and there, and like missed a few cold fronts, and it's like, you know, I'll be on a job filming this or that, or a 3-gun tournament or something, and it'll be like, oh man, a cold front's coming in tomorrow. And so you just feel a little left out. It's like, I know the dog's sitting at home and wants to hunt too. So I'm looking forward to that. And then in January, I try to make a trip down south to like Missouri, Oklahoma, Kansas, somewhere like that. And so I got my buddy Johnny Worth at Totally Obsessed Outdoors. He lives in Oklahoma, and I like going down there to hunt with him. And he was, back when I was in college, he was the first person, back when pro staff was a big deal, you know? Yeah. Like people actually thought like pro staff was cool, right? He was the first person that I was on their pro staff and took photos and video for. So I've known him, and he used to host podcasts before like podcasts were a thing. Like Waterfall Talk, him and my buddy Kevin Crotto hosted that, and that was like 2 dudes talking on a recorded cell phone line. It regurgitated, you know, on a web page before like podcasts were cool.
That's cool.
So I like going down there, and we shoot ducks late, you know, because they're a January 31st close, and shooting by small geese, and you get some giants down there too. But it's completely different hunting like red dirt and winter wheat, because like up here in Minnesota, we hunt, you know, wheat fields, like golden wheat fields, and a lot of corn and that. But yeah, it's different down there.
Well, then they make it basically mud. They till the shit out of it until there's just dirt.
Yeah. We've had a couple days it's blowing like 25, 30 mile per hour, and like there's just red dirt everywhere. Like every nook and cranny, places where it shouldn't be, like in your ear, on your body, in your ears, like, yeah, it's just everywhere.
Well, that'll be super cool. I look
Yeah.
forward to seeing all that.
Yeah, so that's always a good time. But
Yeah.
where are you going to end up for the year?
Oh, but I've spent a lot of time around here, it sounds like. I might be doing some trips with Migra here pretty soon. They were pretty they were pretty stoked about some work that I did for them, so they're trying to get me filmed somewhere. I don't know where, but sounds like with Sean we'll be doing some Michigan trips, possibly a Canada trip, and then something down south. Not really sure where. But as far as like my personal hunts, really the only trip that I do every year is go lake north of us, like 4 hours. We lay out hunt for a few days. I got some time now, so I might venture off and go try and find some other cool stuff to do since I probably won't have the opportunity to do it another time. So I don't know. Pretty fluid right now, but it's I just once hunting season gets here, it's just like as long as I'm out somewhere, I don't really care what I'm doing, you know.
Yeah. It's
So
nice to have the flexibility to chase cold fronts too.
yeah, that's right now it's so warm. I was gonna hunt this morning and it was so warm. I'm like, not even worth it. So
I know.
I
I
didn't.
pulled the same card. Like, best get work done and buckle down and wait for a cold front.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, here in a couple of weeks, it should get pretty cool, pretty good around here. So we'll see. But yeah, I don't really have anything specifically planned, I guess. So we'll just see where it ends up, and that's all right.
Yep.
So to close this out, I always ask the guest if time and money were not an object, what is one more hobby that you would like to take on?
Time and money
Anything that you could do.
that I don't already do.
Correct.
I guess, and maybe this is a cop out, but I'm going to say moose hunting.
It's not a cop out.
Like, I don't moose hunt. Like, I
Yeah.
haven't been moose hunting, but I feel like if I had just endless amounts of time, I'd love just to spend it moose hunting.
To see just the biggest animal you've ever seen in your life walking around in front.
The other aspect of it is like, there's so many, there's a handful of different subspecies of moose, and like throughout the United States, there's different subspecies too. And it's like, how fun it would be to go different places and shoot like moose.
Yeah.
And like, and maybe it's the draw, the allure of the scarcity of moose. And like, in Minnesota, used to have a moose season until 2014. And like, I had a guy that I worked with at Federal, Jake Edson, and like is ate up with moose hunting, and they had multiple moose tags in their family. And like, I just think like it would be so cool if we could get back to the point where we could shoot moose in Minnesota and like
Sweet. Yeah.
in the upper Midwest. Like, that'd be a dream.
Oh yeah. Man, that would be like I've seen moose once and it was from so far away. Same with elk. Like I saw them not very close, but it's just like you see them and you're just like, that is so crazy.
So when we hunt North Dakota, we'll see moose. Like, I've seen them in August during the early season. I've seen them in October, November, like, and a lot of times you'll look out and you'll like see this blob, this like big blob moving, and you're like, huh, what is that? And then you'll like look down and look back up like 30 minutes later, and there'll be like a moose standing there. And it's like, this is so cool. And like, the other thing is like, they're taller than a lot of the corn out there. And so
Right.
you'll be driving down the road and you'll like look over and there'll be a moose standing above the corn. And it's like, that is so cool. Like, one year when me and John were in North Dakota hunting, the local contact that we had was helping a guy shoot a moose. And how it works in North Dakota, it's a once in a lifetime tag. So once you get the lottery and get your moose tag, that's the only moose tag you can ever have in North Dakota. And so we were duck hunting and this guy was moose hunting, and he shot a moose that night. in a swamp where they hang out in North Dakota, right? They hang out in the corn, in the standing corn, and in the potholes in the cattails.
Yeah.
And it ended up being like this 56-inch moose. And so this thing is huge. And so we were a couple of bush lights deep. Yeah. And like, it was in the evening. It's like, you guys want to go help drag out a moose? It's like, yeah, we want to go help drag out a moose. And so we basically had to stage 2 pickup trucks and a big like double axle trailer. And we used one pickup truck with like 300 foot of like tow strap. And we put that around the antlers, and then we lifted the antlers up out of the brush, and then we drug that moose out of the swamp. And like, they're just massive. Like, we put it up on a skid steer, and it's like still hanging on the ground. It's just like, yeah. And like, if you've ever ate moose, I've had it a couple different times with some Canadians, and it's like just the best. I didn't even know how to describe it, but it's the best meat I've ever had.
I've only ever had elk, so no, I have not had moose.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
That's so cool. No, that's a perfect one. Yeah, I mean, it's always cool to ask the question and see where people's minds go. Some people like go way off, like, who knows? But no, the moose hunting is different, but it's like, it's different than waterfowl. So no, I won't say it's a cop out for you. You get.
I mean, it's the same. It's hunting, right? But it's not
so different. Like, it's.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I could say something like shooting ducks in Argentina or Mexico or something like that, but it's like, I'll get there eventually. It's not. It's not this lofty dream that's not going to happen.
Right.
But
yeah.
Moose are just in such few numbers, right? And they're declining, and it's extremely expensive.
Oh yeah.
Go shoot them. So it's like, yeah. That's my answer.
Yeah. Well, buddy, I'll give you a minute so you can plug your social media.
Oh, appreciate it. So my personal is Luke Cook Photo on Instagram. Facebook, it's Luke Cook. And my business is Black Dog Marketing, and it can be reached at Black Dog Marketing Company. So on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube.
Awesome. Well, dude, I really appreciate you coming on. It's been awesome getting to know you and like getting to hear all of the stuff that you've told me. I was like, man, there's no better person to have on this show. So thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you. I'm humbled and appreciate you having me on. And we're going to have to get out together with Mark. So
that's good. That would be wild.
We'll badger him into
it. Yeah, no, we will. That'll be a good time. But all right, buddy. Thank you very much.
Right. Talk to you later.